content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you.
What's good, everybody? What's happening with y'all, man? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. Want to start off by giving a shout out to all them haters out there, man. What's good with y'all, man? On high octane. What's good? Also, man, if you're filtering in, man, make sure you like the video, man. If you haven't, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell notification so you can stay abreast of what's going on here on the Green Gorilla channel. Word up. So now it's time for me to give a shout out to all the members of the Green Gorilla channel, so let's go through that process. Shout out to K-Ron S, True King 337, Javon Thompson, Anthony Davis, BGS Ibmore, Life of Commerce, Raphael Brown, Professor Carlton Jones, Rais Muajid, Lionel Jean Louise. Big up. Big up to Artist and MC, Damon Brown, Donnell 360, Kisses from Afar, Herbert Lewis, Seven Coast Dojo, Rogish the Billmonger, Destro 1, Pulpit 28, Michael Ross, and Charles Rogers. Big up. Big up to Papa Didas, Travis King, Adam Williams, B. Hillfire, Rick Ross, Sandra Dean, Timothy Blewett, Brotherly Love, Charles Gilmore, Patricia Colley, and 7Q Pitt. Big up to y'all. Big up to Kwaku Asasi, Supertech, Gregory Oliver, Greg, Antonio Feria, Barry Little, Alan Wiley, Mr. Valentino, Jason Hale, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, and 77 Base X. Big up to y'all. Big up to Omni Americana, Cameron 87, Deshaun Nolly, Brian Peaks, Nelso, Apex Prowler, Kareem, Dr. Rock, J. Charles, Mark Holt, and Lee Ways. Big up. Big up to Jeffrey Speed, The Face, Mark Swift, Show Me, Black Dog, Odd Collar, Donald Watts, Cozy Corner, HipHop.ca TV, Coach DC, and Kashif Caldwell. Big up. Big up to I Am Black Man, Nichita, Mr. Blue Collar, Barnolis, Kyle J. Sura, I'm Just Jules, Brian McMurray, TD Hip Hop Media, Drew Main, Mr. Heat, and Afro Shop. Big up to y'all. Big up to Sir Anthony, MLR, Universal 178, Black Swerve 404, Rasheed Barnes, Aaron Smith, DHC Truth the Revelator, Gold Professor, Arthur Unknown, and Dr. Tiasan Johnson. Big up. Big up to Kalan Jakala, Ricky Dawson, Cedric Bowman, True 7360, BK Born Shaheed, James Washington, Hostile ADEP, W Pure 1, Marvin Battle Jr., and I can't forget my brother in heaven, Force Windu. Big up to y'all. Also, I want to give a shout out to all the people on my Patreon side. Big up to Jules Winfield, Romello Scuggs, Darnell Smith, Excalibur, Jason Warren, Soul Pen, Anu219, Pursuer Prisoner, Taz, Kwaku 217, Dragon 59, Supreme Ibmore, Adrian Hicks, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi, Mo Mal, and Asangwa. Big up to all of y'all, man. Y'all deserve a round of applause, man. Thank you so much for supporting the Green Gorilla channel. You know, it's a little bitty small channel, a little rinky-dink channel, but thank you for the support to help me keep it going, man. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. And if you're inquiring about how you can become a member of the Green Gorilla channel and to help support me and the content, this is how you do it, y'all. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless. All right, y'all. I'm back. I'm GG, man. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. And today what I want to do is, since the subject comes up from time to time, and shout out, by the way, CIP13. Appreciate that donation, my brother. Appreciate that. Acknowledgements and salutations go out to you, sir. Thank you. Peace to you as well, my brother. So, I've been hearing, about this conversation related to swirling. Where you got a group of black women who feel like the grass is greener on the other side. So, the idea is that, white men are better than black men. But on the other hand, you also have a group of men who argue that the grass is greener on the other side and that it's preferential to date women from another race precisely because of the issues that they have with black women. And I'm talking about black men and women in the United States, but this applies to people in other territories as well. All I want to do is share with you the work of Frantz Fanon, because he already talked about this issue quite a long time ago in a book called Black Skin, White Mask. And being the scholar that I am, I'm going to read this to you. I'm not going to comment too much. I mean, every now and then I might make some comments, but for the most part, it's not that long. It might take 30 minutes or so for me to get through it, but I think it'll prove useful for people, on both sides of the fence on this issue. And, I'm not here to go off on anybody today. I'm just here to present the work of a scholar who is pretty substantial in the academy and in politics worldwide. So, who is Frantz Fanon? He was a French West Indian. He was a psychiatrist and a political philosopher, and he was from the French colony of Martinique. Now, his influential works have become a staple in the fields of post-colonial studies, critical theory, and Marxism, the dirty word. Now, as well as being an intellectual, Fanon was a political radical. Another dirty word. He was a Pan-Africanist. For some of y'all, he was a humanist concerned with the psychopathology of colonialization and the human, social, and cultural consequences of decolonization. So in the course of his work as a physician and a psychiatrist, Fanon supported Algeria, which is in North Africa, their war of independence from France, and was a member of the Algerian National Liberation Front. So, for more than 5 decades, his life and his works have inspired national liberation movements and other radical political organizations in Palestine, Sri Lanka, South Africa, and in the US. Now, what he did was he formulated a model for community psychology because he thought that many mental health patients would do better if they were integrated into their family and into their community instead of being treated with institutionalized care, the professional psychiatry or counseling movements or institutions. Now, he also helped found the field of institutional psychotherapy while working at St. Alban under Francois Tosquel and Jean Uri. Okay, so that's a little bit of background about him. He's famous for several books, the most famous of which is called The Wretched of the Earth. But today we're here to talk about Black Skin, White Masks and the subject matter of swirling. So I'm going to skip chapter 1, the introductory, all that. And what I want to do is talk about what he says about swirling. Okay? So let's just get right to that, man. Let's just get right to that. All right, so I'm going to turn the music off for this, okay? And I'm going to read over it. I might stammer here and there. I just want to remain true to what he's trying to articulate here. There might be some terminology that you don't understand. I'll try to decode it as I go along. But ultimately, chapter 2 of Black Skin, White Masks is entitled The Woman of Color and the White Man. And tomorrow, what I'm going to read is chapter 3, which deals with the black man of color and the white woman. But anyway, he begins chapter 2 by saying, man is motion toward the world and toward his like, a movement of aggression which leads to enslavement or to conquest, a movement of love, a gift of self, the ultimate stage of what by common accord is called ethical orientation. Every consciousness seems to have the capacity to demonstrate these two components simultaneously or alternatively. The person I love will strengthen me by endorsing my assumption of my manhood, while the need to earn the admiration or the love of others will erect a value-making superstructure on my whole vision of the world. In reaching an understanding of phenomena of this sort, the analyst and the phenomenologist are given a difficult task. And if a Sartre, who's the existentialist philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre, or Sartre, and if a Sartre has appeared to formulate a description of love as frustration, his being and nothingness amounting only to an analysis of dishonesty and inauthenticity, the fact remains that true, authentic love, wishing for others what one postulates for oneself, when that postulation unites the permanent values of human reality, entails the mobilization of psychic drives basically free of unconscious conflicts. Now that's a lot to unpack there. Let me try to decipher this. For those who might, find it a little bit terse and incomprehensible. Ultimately, existentialism is a philosophical movement that grew up in Europe, or that, arose out of Europe, and it's all about choices and decision making and freedom. You're doomed to be free because you have a choice. And you're responsible for being authentic in the choices you make. Bad faith in the context of existentialism comes about by denying your freedom to make choices. Okay? But love, he says, is authentic when you wish for others what you want for yourself. But that can only happen minus psychic drives unconscious drives that are pathological. If you got pathological psychic drives and they're connected to ideas and dreams and thoughts about love, that's bad faith. You can't do it. It's neurotic. That's what he's trying to articulate here. And I'm kind of foreshadowing a bit, but that's the basic gist of what he's trying to say right there, okay? Then he goes on to say, left far, far behind, the last sequel of a titanic struggle carried on against the other have been dissipated. Today, I believe in the possibility of love. That is why I endeavor to trace its imperfections, its perversions. In this chapter devoted to the relations between the woman of color and the European, it is our problem to ascertain to what extent authentic love will remain unattainable before one has purged oneself of that feeling of inferiority or that Alderian exaltation, that overcompensation, which seem to be the indices of the black Weltanschauung. Now, Weltanschauung is just worldview, okay? It's German for worldview, okay? For after all, we have a right to be perturbed when we read in Je suis Martiniquais. Martiniquais, I think that's how you say it. Je suis Martiniquais. Okay? I am, excuse me, a Martinican woman. That's what that roughly, if my French serves me correct, that's what that roughly translates into. I am a Martinican woman. And he's, basically quoting this book. And it says, I should have liked to be married, but to a white man. But a woman of color is never altogether respectable in a white man's eyes, even when he loves her. I knew that. This passage, which serves in a way as the conclusion of a vast delusion, prods one's brain. One day, a woman named Mayat Capicia, obeying a motivation whose elements are difficult to detect, sat down to write 202 pages, her life, in which the most ridiculous ideas proliferated at random. The enthusiastic reception that greeted this book in certain circles forces us to analyze it. For me, all circumlocution is impossible. Je suis Martiniquais is cut-rate merchandise, a sermon in praise of corruption. Mayat loves a white man to whom she submits in everything. He is her Lord. She asks nothing, demands nothing, except a bit of whiteness in her life. When she tries to determine in her own mind whether the man is handsome or ugly, she writes, all I know is that he had blue eyes, blonde hair, and a light skin, and that I loved him. It is not difficult to see that a rearrangement of these elements in their proper hierarchy would produce something of this order. I loved him because he had blue eyes, blonde hair, and a light skin. We who come from the Antilles, and this is where Frantz Fanon is from, a colonized section of Martinique, okay? We who come from the Antilles know one thing too well. Blue eyes, the people say, frighten the Negro. When I observed in my introduction that historically inferiority has been felt economically, I was hardly mistaken. There were evenings, unhappily, when he had to leave me alone in order to fulfill his social obligations. He would go to Didier, the fashionable part of Fort de France, inhabited by the Martinique whiteys, who are perhaps not too pure racially, but who are often very rich. It is understood that one is white above a certain financial level. And the France whiteys, most of them government people and military officers. Among Andre's colleagues, who like him had been marooned in the Antilles by the war, some had managed to have their wives join them. I understood that Andre could not always hold himself aloof from them, meaning he had to be with them sometimes. I also accepted the fact that I was barred from this society because I was a woman of color. But I could not help being jealous. It was no good his explaining to me that his private life was something that belonged to him alone, and that his social and military life was something else which was not within his control. I nagged so much that one day he took me to Didier. We spent the evening in one of those little villas that I had admired since my childhood, with two officers and their wives. The women kept watching me with a condescension that I found unbearable. I felt that I was wearing too much makeup, that I was not properly dressed, that I was not doing Andre credit, perhaps simply because of the color of my skin. In short, I spent so miserable an evening that I decided I would never ask Andre to take me with him. So that's an encounter that she had after her nagging him to take her around the white folks of Martinique. Okay? It was Didier, in this fabulous little place in Fort-de-France, right? It was Didier, the preserve of the richest people in Martinique, that magnetized all the girls' wishes. And she makes the point herself. One is white above a certain financial level. The houses in this section had long dazzled the lady. I have the feeling, however, that Mayat Capitia is laying it on. She tells us that she did not go to Fort-de-France until she was grown, at about the age of 18. And yet the mansions of Didier had beguiled her childhood. There is an inconsistency here that becomes understandable when one grasps the background. It is in fact customary in Martinique to dream of a form of salvation that consists of magically turning white. A house in Didier, acceptance into that high society. Didier is a hill that dominates the city. And there you have Hegel's subjective certainty made flesh. And he's making a reference to the philosopher George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel and the master-slave dialectic. I don't want to get into that, but ultimately the master and slave dialectic is one in which the master's identity is dependent upon the slave. The slave's identity or consciousness is, dependent upon the master's. Neither one of them are free. Okay? They're both dependent upon each other in a twisted and in a pathological way. But I don't want to get too far off into that. But he's making a reference to that. Okay? He says, and in another way, it is quite easy to see the place that the dialectic of being and having would occupy in a description of this behavior. Such, however, is not the case with Mayat. She is looked at with distaste. Things begin their usual course. It is because she is a woman of color that she is not accepted in this society. Her resentment feeds on her own artificiality. We shall see why love is beyond the reach of Mayat, Capitius, or, these kind of people of all nations. For the beloved should not allow me to turn my infantile fantasies into reality. Now, this is a psychiatrist making an evaluation of a work created, a biography created by this woman, Mayat Capitius. On the contrary, he should help me to go beyond them. The childhood of Mayat Capitia shows us a certain number of characteristics that illustrate the line of orientation she follows as an adult. And each time there is a movement or a contact, it will have a direct relation to her goal. It would seem indeed that for her, white and black represent two poles of a world, two poles in perpetual conflict, a genuinely Manichaean concept of the world. The word has been spoken. It must be remembered. White or black, that is the question. And Manichaean dualism is, Manichaeanism is a religious tradition, I think in ancient Persia, the ancient Persian world, where, the deities were good and bad. They both had equal rank and positioning within the context of that religious tradition. So that he's making a reference to that. Okay. He goes on to say, I am white. That is to say, I possess beauty and virtue, which have never been black. I am the color of daylight. I am black. I am the incarnation of a complete fusion with the world, an intuitive understanding of the earth, an abandonment of my ego in the heart of the cosmos. And no white man, no matter how intelligent he may be, can ever understand Louis Armstrong and the music of the Congo. If I am black, it is not the result of a curse, but it is because, having offered my skin, I have been able to absorb all the cosmic effluvia. I am truly a ray of sunlight under the earth. And there one lies body to body with one's blackness or one's whiteness, in full narcissistic cry, each sealed into his own peculiarity, with, it is true, now and then a flash or so, but these are threatened at their source. From the first, this is how the problem appears to Mayat at the 5th year of her age and the 3rd page of her book. She took her inkwell out of the desk and emptied it over his head. This was her own way of turning whites into blacks. But she quite soon recognized the futility of such attempts, and then there were Lulu's and her mother, who told her that life was difficult for a woman of color. So since she could no longer try to blacken, to nigrify the world, she was going to try in her own body and in her own mind to bleach it. Damn. If you can't nigrify the world, then bleach it. To start, she would become a laundress. And here's a quote from her. I charged high prices, higher than elsewhere, but I worked better. And since people in Fort-de-France liked their linens clean, they came to me. In the end, they were proud to have their laundry done by my yacht. I'm so sorry that Mayat Kapisha has told us nothing about her dreams. That would have made it easier to reach her unconscious. Instead of recognizing her absolute blackness, she proceeds to turn it into an accident. She learns that her grandmother was white. And then, he quotes her. I found that I was proud of it. I was certainly not the only one who had white blood, but a white grandmother was not so ordinary as a white grandfather. So my mother then was a mixture. I should have guessed it when I looked at her light color. I found her prettier than ever and cleverer, more refined. If she had married a white man, do you suppose I should have been completely white? And life might not have been so hard for me. I daydreamed about this grandmother whom I had never known and who had died because she had loved a colored man of Martinique. How could a Canadian woman have loved a man of Martinique? I could never stop thinking of our priest, and I made up my mind that I could never love anyone but a white man, a blue-eyed blonde Frenchman. Okay, I want to go back to this footnote because the white grandfather is what he's making a reference to. Check this out now. Since he is the master, and more simply the male, the white man can allow himself the luxury of sleeping with many women. This is true in every country, and especially in the colonies. But when a white woman accepts a black man, there is automatically a romantic aspect. It is a giving, not a seizing. In the colonies, in fact, let me give a bomb to that. White men who are colonial settlers, they get their pick of whatever women they want, is what he's trying to articulate here. Through force or through, persuasion. It's true. Okay? But he says something different happens with a black man and a white woman. But still, there's some psychopathology connected to that as well, I think, and we'll learn that tomorrow. Okay? But anyway, he says in the colonies, in fact, even though there is little marriage or actual sustained cohabitation between whites and blacks, the number of hybrids is amazing. You think? Little marriage, little cohabitation, but it's a whole lot of hybrids. Wonder why? Wonder how? Anyway, he says this is not because the white men, this is because the white men often sleep with their black servants. Nonetheless, that does not provide any foundation for this passage from Fanon. And he's quoting another author here whom he disagrees with. And Fanon is talking to other white guys. I don't know if he's Italian or not. I just haven't done the background check on it, so I can't say. I'll probably look it up to try to give you some reference. But anyway, this is Fanon, some white guy writing. Thus, one point to excuse, their sex with alien women, native women, colonized women. Okay. Thus, one part of our drives will quite naturally impel us toward the most alien types. That is no mere literary illusion. There was no question of literature, and the illusion was probably very slight when Gallinu's soldiers chose young Roma Toa as their more or less temporary wives. Temporary wives. In fact, these first contacts presented no difficulties at all. This was in part due to the healthy sex life of the Malagasys, which was unmarred by complexes, meaning that there was no shame when it came to the act of sex for these native Malagasys, okay? But which white women, of course, have to show modesty and so on and so forth, but not these women. But this only goes to show that racial conflicts develop gradually and do not arise spontaneously. So he's basically saying that, race comes after, but what's natural and spontaneous is these interactions, these amorous, sex-filled interactions. And, Fanon just vehemently disagrees. He says, look, let us not exaggerate. When a soldier of a conquering army went to bed with a young Malagasy girl, there was undoubtedly no tendency on his part to respect her entity as another person. The racial conflicts did not come later. They coexisted. The fact that Algerian colonists go to bed with their 14-year-old housemaids in no way demonstrates a lack of racial conflicts in Algeria. No, the problem is more complicated. And Mayat Kapisha is right. It is an honor to be the daughter of a white woman. And why? Well, that proves that one was not made in the bushes. Damn. Made in the bushes. This expression is applied exclusively to all the illegitimate children of the upper class in Martinique. They are known to be extremely numerous. Aubrey, for example, is supposed to have fathered almost 50. In the bushes. Wow. Anyway, man, going on with the text apart from the footnote, but I wanted to read that footnote, okay? So let me find out exactly where I was. Okay. So, she goes on. I'm going to pick up on the line where she was talking about how her grandmother, because she was white, was cleverer and prettier and more refined. And how could she have dared to marry this black Martinique man? And what would her life have been like if her grandfather weren't black? Because, those black men are bestial. Not quite white enough. They don't have the complexion for the connection. But anyway, we are thus put out on notice that what Mayat wants is a kind of lactification. And it's not it's about whitewashing like milk, okay? A lactification. For in a word, the race must be whitened. Every woman in Martinique knows this, says it, repeats it. Whiten the race, save the race, but not in the sense that one might think. Not preserve the uniqueness of that part of the world in which they grew up, but make sure that it will be white. Every time I have made up my mind to analyze certain kinds of behavior, I've been unable to avoid the consideration of certain nauseating phenomena. The number of sayings, proverbs, petty rules of conduct that govern the choice of a lover in the Antilles is astounding. It is always essential to avoid falling back into the pit of niggerhood. And every woman in the Antilles, whether in a casual flirtation or in a serious affair, is determined to select the least black of the men. Sometimes, in order to justify a bad investment, she is compelled to resort to such arguments as this: X is black, but misery is blacker. I know a great number of girls from Martinique, students in France, who admitted to me with complete candor, completely white candor, that they would find it impossible to marry black men. Get out of that and then deliberately go back to it. Thank you, no. Besides, they added, it is not that we deny that blacks have any good qualities, but it is so much better to be white. I was talking only recently to one such woman. Breathless with anger, she stormed at me. If Césaire makes so much display about accepting his race, it is because he really feels it as a curse. Do the whites boast like that about theirs? Every one of us has a white potential, but some try to ignore it and others simply reverse it. As far as I am concerned, I wouldn't marry a Negro for anything in the world. Such attitudes are not rare, and I must confess that they disturb me. For in a few years, this young woman will have finished her examinations and gone off to teach at some school in the Antilles. It's not hard to guess what will come of that. If you got a woman like that teaching other children, it's going to reinforce the neurosis and the psychopathology. Anyway, an enormous task confronts the Antillian, who has begun by carefully examining the objectivity of the various prejudices prevailing in his environment. When I began this book, having completed my medical studies, I thought of presenting it as my thesis, but dialectic required the constant adoption of positions. Although I had more or less concentrated on the psychic alienation of the black man, I could not remain silent about certain things which, however psychological they may be, produce consequences that extend into the domains of other sciences. Every experience, especially if it turns out to be sterile, has to become a component of reality and thus play a part in the restructuring of reality. That is to say, that the patriarchal European family, with its flaws, its failures, its vices, closely linked to the society that we know, produces about 30% neurotics. Damn. The European family produces about 30. This is a clinical psychologist and psychiatrist who has treated white folks using Freudian psychoanalysis. Now, I think there's some validity into what Freud has brought to bear in the psychological sciences, but I have my skepticism. But But one of the most important, contributions is that there is an unconscious mind. That some things do take place in the subconscious. And that, some pathology and neurosis is linked back to our early childhood experiences and traumas. Now, is everything related to sex, sexual repression, sex? I don't think so. However, I do think that Freud was onto something. Anyway, the problem is to create, with the help of psychoanalytical, sociological, political lessons, a new family environment capable of reducing, if not eliminating, the proportion of waste in the asocial sense of the word. In other words, the question is whether basic personality is a constant or a variable. All these frantic women of color in quest of white men are waiting. And one of these days, surely they will be surprised to find that they do not want to go back. They will dream of a wonderful night, a wonderful lover, a white man. Possibly, too, they will become aware one day that white men do not marry black women, but they have consented to run this risk. What they must have is whiteness at any price. For what reason? Nothing could be simpler. Here is a story that suits their minds. One day, St. Peter saw three men arrive at the gate of heaven, a white man, a mulatto, and a Negro. What do you want most? He asked the white man. Money. And you, he asked the mulatto. Fame. St. Peter turned to the Negro, who said with a wide smile, I'm just carrying these people's bags. And Kyle Bonner, I see your comment. No, this, if it's in quotes, he's quoting the woman. He's also, while he's quoting the woman, offering his own commentary in the form of psychosocial analysis. That's to answer your question there, sir. Okay, just so you know. All right. And there's a footnote there. Not long ago, Eddie Emblay described one of his disillusionments. I was stupefied as an adolescent when a girl who knew me quite well jumped up in anger because I had said to her in a situation where the word was not only appropriate, but the one word that suited the occasion. You, as a negress. Me? A negress? Can't you see I'm practically white? I despise Negroes. Niggers stink. They're dirty and lazy. Think about the dusty. You ever hear that thrown around? Dusty. They're dirty and lazy. Don't ever mention niggas to me. I knew another black girl who kept a list of Parisian dance halls where there was no chance of running into niggers. Like avoiding black culture at all costs. Like, I don't want to be around the dusties, the crusties. We must see whether it is possible for the black man to overcome his feeling of insignificance, to rid his life of the compulsive quality that makes it so like the behavior of the phobic. And I think he's talking about black people, in general, when he uses the term black man here, right? Which is, a way of writing that has pretty much been excised from Western culture, because of the feminist movement. But he's talking about phobia, okay? And he knows well what phobia actually is because he's a clinical psychiatrist. Anyway, affect is exacerbated in the Negro. He is full of rage because he feels small. He suffers from an inadequacy in all human communication. And all these factors chain him with an unbearable insularity. Describing the phenomena of ego withdrawal, Anna Freud writes, and I suppose here he's making a reference to one of Freud's relatives. As a method of avoiding pain, ego restriction, like the various forms of denial, does not come under the heading of the psychology of neurosis, but is a normal stage in the development of the ego. So, when the ego is young and plastic, its withdrawal from one field of activity is sometimes compensated for by excellence in another, upon which it concentrates. But when it has become rigid or has already acquired an intolerance of pain and is so obsessionally fixated to a method of flight, such withdrawal is punished by impaired development. By abandoning one position after another, it becomes one-sided, loses too many interests, and can show but a meager achievement. So, he's basically making an analysis drawn from the psychoanalytic theory of Anna Freud to make some sort of diagnosis of this sentiment to swirl and this phobic, neurotic positioning by the women of the Antilles, right? We understand now why the black man cannot take pleasure in his insularity. For him, there is only one way out, and it leads into the white world. Whence his constant preoccupation with attracting the attention of the white man, his concern with being powerful like the white man, his determined effort to acquire protective qualities. That is, the proportion of being or having that enters into the composition of an ego. As I said earlier, it is from within that the Negro will seek admittance to the white sanctuary. The attitude derives from the intention. Ego withdrawal as a successful defense mechanism is impossible for the Negro. He requires a white approval. In the midst of her mystical euphoria and her rhapsodic canticles, it seems to Mayat Capitia that she is an angel and that she soars away, all pink and white. Nevertheless, in the film Green Pastures, God and the angels are black. But the film was a brutal shock to our author. How is it possible to imagine God with Negro characteristics? This is not my vision of paradise. But after all, it was just an American film. You got some people today. You remember Good Times, the episode where Michael was questioning why there was a picture of a white Jesus in the house? There's some people today who basically refuse to put up an image of a black Jesus. Nothing but this effeminate, blonde-haired, blue-eyed representation of Jesus, which couldn't have existed in the first place because the people during the time that Jesus was born didn't look nothing like that. But hey, everybody's got to have their icons, right? I guess, huh? Anyway, indeed, no. The good and merciful God cannot be black. He is a white man with bright pink cheeks. From black to white is the course of mutation. One is white as one is rich, as one is beautiful, as one is intelligent. Meanwhile, Andre has departed to carry the white message to other Mayats under other skies. Delightful little genes with blue eyes, bicycling the whole length of the chromosome corridor. But as a good white man, he has left instructions behind with him. He is speaking of his and Mayat's child. You will bring him up. You will tell him about me. You will say, he was a superior person. You must work hard to be worthy of him. What about dignity? He had no need now to achieve it. It was injected now into the labyrinth of his arteries, entrenched in his little pink fingernails, a solidly rooted white dignity. And what about the father? This is what Etiemble has to say about him. A fine specimen of his kind. He talked about the family, work, the nation, our good Petain, and our good God, all of which allowed him to make her pregnant according to form. God has made use of us, said the handsome swine, the handsome white man, the handsome officer, after which, under the same God-fearing Petainist properties or proprieties, I shove her over to the next man. Damn. That's that Biggie Smalls right there. Nothing left to do but send her home to you. I'm through. Damn. Let me read that again. After which the same God-fearing Petainist proprieties, I shove her over to the next man. Wow. Before we have finished with her whose white lord is like one dead and who surrounds herself with dead men in a book crowded with deplorably dead things, we feel that we should like to ask Africa to send us a special envoy. Nor we kept waiting. Abdoulaye Saji in Nini offers us a description of how black men can behave in contact with Europeans. I've said that Negrophobes exist. It is not hatred of the Negro, however, that motivates them. They lack the courage for that, or they have lost it. Hate is not inborn. It has to be constantly cultivated, to be brought into being, in conflict with more or less recognized guilt complexes. Hate demands existence, and he who hates has to show his hate in appropriate actions and behavior. In a sense, he has to become hate. That is why Americans have substituted discrimination for lynching, each to his own side of the street. Therefore, we are not surprised that in the cities of French, Black Africa, there are European quarters. Mournier's work, Les Hivers d'Afrique Noire. So that basically is the evil of Black Africa. That's loosely what it would translate into. Had already attracted my interest, but I was impatiently awaiting an African voice. Thanks to Alioune Diop's magazine, I've been able to coordinate the psychological motivations that govern men of color. There is wonder, in the most religious sense of the word, in this passage. Monsieur Campagne is the only white man in St. Louis who goes regularly to the St. Louis Club, a man of a certain social standing, for he is an engineer with the Department of Bridges and Highways, as well as a deputy director of public works in Senegal. He is said to be very much a Negrophile, much more so than Monsieur Rodin, who teaches at the Lycée Faidherbe, and who gave a lecture on the equality of the races in the St. Louis Club itself. And the Lycée is, I think, a high school or something like that. The Lyceum, it could be it could be a college, but it's either a high school or a college, okay? Anyway, the good character of the one or the other is a constant theme for vehement discussions. In any event, Monsieur Campagne goes to the club more often, and there he has made the acquaintance of very well-behaved natives who show him much deference, who like him, and who feel honored by his presence among them. So all these Negroes are clamoring over these white people who consider themselves to be Negrophiles and who've overcome, their so-called phobia related to being around black folks. Okay? Anyway, the author, who is a teacher in Black Africa, feels obligated to Monsieur Rodin for his lecture on racial equality. I call this an outrage. One can understand the complaints that Mounier heard when the young Africans whom he had occasion to meet. What we need here are Europeans like you. One is constantly aware that for the black man, encountering a Tubob, a white guy, okay, with understanding offers a new hope of harmony. I think it's all, theater and performance, all this I'm a cool white guy shit. That's just my opinion. Anyway, analyzing various passages of Abdoulaye Saji's story, I shall attempt to grasp the living reactions of the women of color to the European. First of all, there are two such women, the negress and the mulatto. The first has only one possibility and one concern, to turn white. The second wants not only to turn white, but also to avoid slipping back into blackness. What indeed could be more illogical than a mulatto woman's acceptance of a Negro husband? For it must be understood once and for all that it is a question of saving the race. Hence Nene's great problem. A Negro has had the gall to go so far as to ask her to marry him. A Negro had the gall to write her. And this is some black man trying to win the affections of a mulatto, okay? Check out the symptastic prose. The love that I offer you is pure and strong. It has nothing of a false tenderness intended to lull you with lies and illusions. I want to see you happy, completely happy, in a setting to frame your qualities, which I believe I know how to appreciate. I should consider it the highest of honors and the greatest of joys to have you in my house and to dedicate myself to you, body and soul. Your graces would illuminate my home and radiate light to the darkest corners. Furthermore, I consider you too civilized and refined to reject brutally the offer of a devoted love concerned only with reassuring your happiness. And here's, Fanon critiquing it. This final sentence should not surprise us. Normally, the mulatto woman should refuse the presumptuous Negro without mercy. But since she's civilized, she will not allow herself to see her lover's color so that she can concentrate her attention on his devotion. Describing Maktar, Abdoulaye Saji writes, an idealist and a convinced advocate of unlimited progress, he still believed in the good faith of men, in their honesty, and he readily assumed that in everything, merit alone must triumph. Who is Maktar? He has passed his baccalaureate, he is an accountant in the Department of Rivers, and he is pursuing a perfectly stupid little stenographer, who has, however, the least disputable quality. She's almost white. Therefore, one must apologize for taking liberty of sending her a letter. The utmost insolence, perhaps the first that any Negro had dared to attempt. One must apologize for daring to offer black love to a white soul. This we encounter again in Rene Maran. The fear, the timorousness, the humility of the black man in his relations with the white woman, or in any case, with a woman whiter than he. Just as Mayat Capitia tolerates anything from her lord, Andre, Maktar makes himself the slave of Nini, the mulatto, prepared to sell his soul. But what is waiting for this boor is the law of a plea in bar. The mulatto considers his letter an insult, an outrage to her honor as a white lady. This Negro is an idiot, a scoundrel, an ignoramus who needs a lesson. That lesson she is prepared to give him. She will teach him to be more courteous and less brazen. She will make him understand that white skins are not for boognools. Having learned the circumstances, the whole mulatto society plays chorus to her wrath. There is talk of taking the matter into court, of having the black man brought up on criminal charges. There will be letters to the head of the Department of Public Works, to the governor of the colony, to call their attention to the black man's behavior and have him dismissed in recompense for the moral havoc that he has inflicted. Such an offense against principle should be punished by castration, and ultimately a request is made that Maktar be formally reprimanded by the police. For if he returns to his unhealthy follies, we will have him brought into line by Police Inspector Drew, whose colleagues have nicknamed him the real bad white man. And then, he comes in and says, we have seen here how a girl of color reacts to a declaration of love made by one of her own. Let us inquire now what happens in the case of a white man. Once more, we resort to Saji, the long passage that he devotes to the reactions produced by the marriage of a white man and a mulatto will provide the vehicle. For some time, a rumor had been repeated all over St. Louis. It was at first a little whisper that went from one to another, making the wrinkled faces of the old signaras glow, putting new light into their dull eyes. Then the younger women, showing the whites of their eyes and forming their heavy lips into circles, shouted the news, which caused amazement everywhere. Oh, it can't be. How do you know it's true? Can such things happen? It's sweet. It's such a scream. The news that had been running through St. Louis for a month was delightful, more delightful than all the promises in the world. It crowned a certain dream of grandeur, a distinction which was common to all the mulatto women. The ninis, the nanas, and the nenettes live wholly outside the natural conditions of their country. The great dream that haunts every one of them is to be the bride of a white man from Europe. One can say that all their efforts are directed to this end, which is almost never attained. Their need to gesticulate, their love of ridiculous ostentation, their calculated, theatrical, revolting attitudes, or just so many effects of the same mania for grandeur. They must have white men, completely white, and nothing else will do. Almost all of them spend their entire lives waiting for this stroke of luck, which is anything but likely. And they are still waiting when old age overtakes them and forces them deep into dark refuges where the dream finally grows into a haughty resignation. Very delightful news. Monsieur de Rivy, a completely white European employed in the civil service, had formally requested the hand of Dede, a mulatto who was only half Negro. It was unbelievable. And then this is Fanon going back with his own analysis. Something remarkable must have happened on the day when this white man declared his love to the mulatto. There was recognition, incorporation into a group that had seemed hermetic. The psychological minus value, this feeling of insignificance and its corollary, the impossibility of reaching the light, totally vanished. From one day to the next, the mulatto went from the class of slaves to that of masters. She had been recognized through her overcompensating behavior. She was no longer the woman who wanted to be white. She was white. She was joining the white world. In Magic Noir, with Magic Black magic, Paul Moran described a similar phenomenon, but one has since learned to be leery of Paul Moran. From the psychological point of view, it may be interesting to consider the following problem. The educated mulatto woman, especially if she is a student, engages in doubly equivocal behavior. She says, I do not like the Negro because he is savage. Not savage in a cannibal way, but lacking refinement, an abstract point of view. And when one points out to her that in this respect, some black people may be her superiors, she falls back on their ugliness. A factitious point of view, faced with the proofs of a genuine black aesthetic, she professes to be unable to understand it. One tries then to explain its canon to her. The wings of her nose flare. There's a sharp intake of breath. She is free to choose her own husband. As a last resort, the appeal to subjectivity. If, as Anna Freud says, the ego is driven to desperation by the amputation of all its defense mechanisms, insofar as the bringing of the unconscious activities of the ego into consciousness has the effect of disclosing the defensive processes and rendering them inoperative, the result analysis is to weaken the ego still further and to advance the pathological process. So ultimately what he's doing is he's using Anna Freud's psychoanalytic understanding of pathologies and trying to utilize it in order to explain these mulatto women's positionality on, how she disparages that from which she comes. And that which she creates through her own reproductive processes, which is the doubly ironic thing about it all. But, but in Day-Day's case, the ego does not have to defend itself since its claims have been officially recognized. She is marrying a white man. Every coin, however, has two sides. Whole families have been made fools of. 3 or 4 mulatto girls had acquired mulatto admirers, while all their friends had white men. This was looked on particularly as an insult to the family as a whole, an offense, moreover, that required amends. For these families had been humiliated in their most legitimate ambitions. The mutilation that they had suffered affected their very movement of their lives, the rhythm of their existence. So to not be approached by white folks, these mulatto women, to be married, and to instead have another mulatto offer marriage, affected the very movement of their lives, the rhythm of their existence. In response to a profound desire, they sought to change, to evolve. This right was denied to them. At any rate, it was challenged. Now, what is there to say after these expositions? Whether one is dealing with Mayette Capicia of Martinique or Nini of St. Louis, the same process is to be observed. A bilateral process, an attempt to acquire, by internalizing them, assets that were originally prohibited. It is because the negress feels inferior that she aspires to win admittance into the white world. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It is because the negress feels inferior that she aspires to win admittance into the white world. In this endeavor, she will seek the help of a phenomena that we shall call affective erethism. Wow. I know you know what affective means, having to deal with emotion, but erethism has to do with excitation, almost of a sexual kind, almost like sexual stimulation. This work represents the sum of the experiences and observations of 7 years. Regardless of the area I have studied, one thing has struck me. The Negro enslaved by his inferiority, the white man enslaved by his superiority alike behave in accordance with a neurotic orientation. And this is more the master-slave dialectic from Hegel coming to bear on this analysis of the pathology exhibited psychologically by both whites and blacks, owing to slave-based and colonial conditions. Therefore, I have been led to consider their alienation in terms of psychoanalytic classifications. The Negro's behavior makes him akin to an obsessive neurotic type, or if one prefers, he puts himself into a complete situational neurosis. In the man of color, there's a constant effort to run away from his own individuality, to annihilate his own presence. Damn! In the man of color, there is a constant effort to run away from his own individuality, to annihilate his own presence. Whenever a man of color protests, there is alienation. Whenever a man of color rebukes, there is alienation. We shall see later in chapter 6 that the Negro, having been made inferior, proceeds from humiliating insecurity through strongly voiced self-accusation to despair. He's humiliatingly insecure, and he makes self-accusations of himself, and he engages in despair. Now you see this writ large in culture all the time, black culture, where you got one black person going out of their way to make reference to the cultural inferiority of another Negro, or the ugliness, the blackness of another Negro, the pathology of another Negro. And one can argue this is taking place today in the context of African American culture and the so-called gender war. And it ain't just going one-sided, according to Fanon. It's going both ways. Men and women together engaged in humiliating insecurity through strongly voiced self-accusation to despair. Now, I'm reading this only because I'm trying to make sense of it from a psychoanalyst perspective. And I know nothing new is really actually being said here. I do. I know that. I'm aware of that. But this is just an outline to keep us on track and to be able to add nomenclature to the conversation. That's all, okay? So anyway, the attitude of the black man toward the white or toward his own race often duplicates almost completely a constellation of delirium, frequently bordering on the region of the pathological. It will be objected that there is nothing psychotic in the Negroes who are discussed here. Nevertheless, I should like to cite two highly significant instances. A few years ago, I knew a Negro medical student. He had an agonizing conviction that he was not taken at his true worth, not on the university level, he explained, but as a human being. He had an agonizing conviction that he would never succeed in gaining recognition as a colleague from the whites in his profession and as a physician from his European patients. In such moments of fantasy intuition, the times most favorable to psychosis, he would get drunk. Finally, he enlisted one day in the Army as a medical officer, and, he added, not for anything in the world would he agree to go to the colonies or to serve in a colonial unit. He wanted to have white men under his command. He was a boss. As such, he was to be feared or respected. That was just what he wanted. So he didn't want to be around his own kind. He had to be around white people to establish or confirm his own superiority, especially in relation to his education. He couldn't utilize the education to better the same kind of people that he came from. He had to use it in order to demonstrate his superiority to white folks. Borderline neurotical. That was just what he wanted, what he strove for, to make white men adopt a Negro attitude toward him. In this way, he was obtaining revenge for the imago that had always obsessed him. The frightened, trembling Negro, abased before the white overlord. I had another acquaintance, a customs inspector in a port on the French mainland, who was extremely severe with tourists or travelers in transit because, he explained to me, if you aren't a bastard, they take you for a poor shit. Since I'm a Negro, you can imagine how I'm going to get it either way. In Understanding Human Nature, Adler says, and he's making reference, I guess, to either a philosopher or another psychologist. When we demonstrate cases, it is frequently convenient to show relationships between the childhood impressions and the actual complaint. This is best done by a graph. We will succeed in many cases in being able to plot this graph of life, the spiritual curve along which the entire movement of an individual has taken place. The equation of the curve is the behavior pattern which this individual has followed since earliest childhood. Actually, and look, Look, we know that there are studies right now that call the dial test, okay? Where you got little kids, man, like as old as 3 to 4 years old. You show them a white dial, you show them a black dial, they give all the positive attributes to the white dial, and they give all the negative attributes to the black child. Black and white kids do this. And of course, this is a psychiatrist, a psychoanalyst. He's trying to explain the psychopathology that exists within us and how it plays out in the whole concept of swirling. All I'm trying to do is just add to the discussion, man. I'm not trying to humiliate anybody, not trying to debase anybody or anyone. You know, it is what it is. I'm just trying to be serious. Today is not a hoop and hollering day for me. I'm just trying to be expository, trying to give you the information, okay? The equation of the curve is the behavior pattern which this individual has followed since earliest childhood. And because people get caught up in their own behavior and it becomes habituated, they don't know the onset or the proximate cause of the behavior. To them, it's just quite natural. It's up to the psychoanalyst to try to pinpoint, where this pathology or this neurosis comes from so that it can be dealt with consciously so that they can retrain their unconscious and overcome the neurosis or the pathology that exists within the unconscious. Anyway, he says, actually, we see this behavior pattern whose final configuration is subject to some few changes, but whose essential content, whose energy and meaning remain unchanged from earliest childhood, is the determining factor, even though the relations to the adult environment may tend to modify it in some instances. We are anticipating, and it is already clear, that the individual psychology of Adler will help us to understand the conception of the world held by the man of color. Since the black man is a former slave, we will turn to Hegel too. And to conclude, Freud should be able to contribute to our study. Nini and Moyat Capitia, two types of behavior that move us to thought. Are there no other possibilities? But those are pseudo questions that do not concern us. I will say, however, that every criticism of that which implies a solution, if indeed one can propose a solution to one's fellow, to a free being. What I insist on is that the poison must be eliminated once and for all. And that's the end of that chapter. And I'm not going to go into chapter 3 at this time. I'll say this for tomorrow. But he also has similar things to say about the man of color and the white woman. Now, this is not definitive. It's one influential thinker's thought on the subject matter, and he's writing at a different time. I mean, Frantz Fanon died in 1961, 10 years before I was born. Okay? He died when he was 36 years old. I mean, this brother, he accomplished a lot in a short period of time, and, the acclaim that he has now is unbelievable given, his relative obscurity when he was living. But, you know how posthumous fame, arises in the world in which we live. He didn't get his roses when he was living, but he's got them now. So at any rate, man, I'm going to take a quick commercial break, man. If any of y'all want to comment on this, you have the opportunity to do so. I see there's one person at least who's waiting to chat. I'm going to take a quick break, man, because I've been talking for roughly, an hour and 30 minutes without any break. And so give me 1 second and then I'll come back and we can have a conversation about this. I'll be back with Papa Didas. 1 second. That was a mistake. Man, you got to make sure everything turned off when you come back on. But anyway, you turn that effect off. Let me turn this music off. I got Papa Didas, who's ready to join in on the stream. And Man Friday also, you can come back if you're still here. I don't know if you are, but Papa Didas, are you there, sir?
How's it going, man?
Hey, what's going on, brother? How are you? Let me make sure that I got the brands up so that I know who I'm talking to. What's going on, Papa, man? What were your thoughts about reading Frantz Fanon? Look, a lot of what he said was complicated, but not too complicated, I think. But what was your initial impression?
He made some good points. I think that his understanding as far as like the psychological issues that we deal with when it comes to race, I think is what stands out to me. I think his understanding that we internalize it. It's not just something that's unconscious, conscious. It's really deeply subconscious. And my thing is, if we've been brainwashed to think lighter is right, then do we have to make a concerted effort to actually make sure that we don't do that and don't pedestalize people that are lighter skinned and do the opposite now? And including, you know, dating people that we consider darker. You know, I was from a generation that took, you know, it took some amazing people to really push the envelope to make being darker skinned a little bit more popular. We're talking about Wesley Snipes, Michael Jordan, on and on and on. Tyson Bedford, actors and actresses that were dark skinned that finally made a push that we could respect and go, oh, you know, dark skinned people are all right. They ain't too bad. We could put them on TV and stuff like that, you know. So the dynamic took a long time to change, and it's still a lot of work right now, man. It's still a lot of work because I see that stereotype. I hear it from brothers. I hear it from sisters. So I think we need to make a concerted effort to do the opposite of what our oppressor did. That's my perspective, at least.
I get it. I'm not going to say I'm ambivalent related to this, but when I think about it, in relation to aesthetics, I think that there's some beautiful light-skinned women, but it's some damn butt ugly, like, light-skinned women, dude. I'm just gonna be honest, man. Beauty doesn't come packaged neatly into either light or dark skin. That's just my view of it. And neither is intelligence, creativity, artistry, or civilization. But it's this white culture, European culture, that has us accept these ideas about color and intelligence, cultural refinement, right? It has us unconsciously playing out this neurosis, this kind of racial pathology, and it affects the ego. And it affects mating practices. It impacts and affects the family. And all of this, owing to the absolute nonsense created by these white folks. And ultimately it has its source in economic and material exploitation. That's what I think Fanon is going to say. But I think you're right to some extent. It's like love yourself and love the stock from which you come. There's nothing superior about these folks just because they're white, just because they got blue eyes or blonde hair. There's nothing innately superior about them. I mean, they're good and bad. There's pathological white people. I mean, and he states at the beginning, like, just like doing psychoanalysis of the European patriarchal family, like 30% of the products of those unions or those, institutional arrangements, 30% of them are neurotic. They're screwed up. Their childhood, their family circumstances are not idyllic. Okay? They're not perfect. But I do know that there's some extra baggage associated with dealing with somebody, who's authentically black, especially as somebody who's politically conscious. Because a lot of black people will just, explain away race at all. And they don't make everything subjective. Like there is no sociogenic component to the material outcome of black folks. Like I just, to me, that's just that Daffy Dance and shit, man. I'm not about to do that, bro. I'm not about to get on the Daffy Dance train. I'm just not about to do it, man.
What about the aspect of validation? Like I think that's one of the biggest issues I've seen for most people. And again, this is unconscious as well, where we seek validation from white people on things that we do. Henceforth, if you're always looking outside in regards to get what you need, you're never going to really be fulfilled in any aspect. You know what I mean? Like that's the way I'm looking at it from that standpoint. And again, but before you even answer and anybody else answer that, I appreciate you bringing Frantz Fanon into this. His book and his work it's tough to read. It's not an easy read. I know he wrote it for us, but man, like it should be a layman's terms version of his book to kind of make it a little bit easier for people. But I appreciate you bringing it in. I'm reading Revolutionary Suicide by Huey P. Newton right now, and in his book he speaks about Frantz Fanon and quotes him as well. So again, appreciate you bringing the book up, and keep doing your work, man. I'll mute my line.
For sure, man. Thank you for joining in, dropping by and having something to say, my brother. Thank you. And I want to make sure that I go through a list of contributors and supporters right now at this time, and then we'll get back to the discussion. Mr. Heat, I want to give a shout out to you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your help there, man. It is definitely duly noted. I want to give a shout out to a few other people. Jason Hales. Thank you so much, sir. He says, GG, man, you're adding to my reading list faster than I can keep up, and I like it. You know what, Mr. Jason Hales? Thank you for the, the accolade, and keep reading, brother. Like this stuff is not easy for me to read either, but, the more I read, the easier it becomes to absorb. Sometimes I have to engage the text on more than one occasion to actually, decipher the meaning of the author. But I mean, that's just the nature of dealing with a text. You got to deal with it, and if you don't understand something and they make references to something, you got to dig back further and go through those footnotes. And but I will say this, there are spark notes out there for Frantz Fanon. I mean, like there are cliff notes out there. But I decided to, I don't like to do cliff notes, man. I want you to engage the author directly so you can develop your own interpretation or understanding of what he's saying without it being filtered by somebody else. Get it, straight no chase out the horse's mouth. instead of getting it from he said or she said something about Frantz Fanon. Well, Fanon is perfectly capable of speaking for himself through the document that he wrote. You know what I'm saying? And so you have the capacity and the ability to interpret just as much as anybody else. Secondary sources are okay though, for a rough outline, but you also want to get it straight from the horse's mouth. So thank you, Jason Hales. Appreciate that, brother. Also, I want to give a shout out to trying to do this here. Lateef Edwards. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate that. I don't know why, like I'm getting different. Thank you, Lateef Edwards. Appreciate your donation, sir. And I think that might be it for the time being. Oh, T Fitness, thank you, my brother, for the super sticker. Appreciate that. So let's get back to the conversation. I just wanted to, take time out to appreciate the people who showed me some appreciation. So anybody want to make a statement? I know we got Man Friday.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, what's going on, my brother, across the pond? What's going on?
GG, I'm so grateful for this show today, man. One thing I find in these spaces is they don't take the time to look into where these ideologies come from. I mean, people know we got problems in the community, but they don't ever check to see. I mean, they use a general term of slavery, but with you go to the source material, and I really respect that, and can you believe I had this book, right? I had this book 20 years, and I've never read it. That's shame on me. I had this and I had Wretched of the Earth, but what happened is I was reading Wretched of the Earth, and because it was translated from French, I was struggling with it, the way it was put in, and I never picked up this book. I just picked it up now when I realized, I was like, man, and just look at what you're talking about. Go ahead.
No, it just goes to show you that, I mean, these conversations have been had before.
Yeah.
And people's interpretation of this phenomenon has been proffered before. Like, it's not like we're dealing with a new phenomenon here. Like, all of a sudden, women who are out-group women haven't, imagined or fantasized about being white. And we have new studies which kind of confirm, the whole reason of being for this on a psychoanalytical level. Again, the dial experiment is instructive here. I mean, it's a perfect example, right? If you grow up thinking that you're inferior and that another group of people are better, just owing to, your early childhood experiences and the social pathology that exists in the superstructure of the society in which you live, how can you not help but adopt those attitudes?
I think we didn't look into it deep enough until like the present times. We know that hypergamy and different things, women see themselves as an equivalent to the male who they're either married to or they're dating. If you're dating a bad man, she thinks that she's hard too. If you're dating a wealthy man, she thinks that she's wealthy too. What we didn't consider is that the black female who is dating with white society, oftentimes she sees them as an equivalent, and she takes on their ideology as well. And with this swirling phenomenon, it's like we've seen a group of women who are arguably racist. They have very disparaging criminal views about black men, and they've incorporated this from their white counterparts. That's what the whole swirling thing is. But if you let one of them tell you, they'll say, we're just looking out for interracial dating. But swirlers are different to people who interracially date. And different in this way. People, in the metropolis, there is hundreds of different nations of people. But the swirlers only date the dominant society. They only date European males, and they take on his ideology, his talking points, his conservatism, or whatever, and then they incorporate those values and project them onto the rest of black society. That's the problem I have with them. If you want to date, you can date who you want to date, but you don't have to hate who you're from. There's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with their brains, and it's a psychosis. But we thought that this is a new phenomenon, but it's not a new phenomenon, because back in the past, I'm actually speaking from the Antilles now, where I am at the moment. I've been there for several months, and they aspire so much to be part of white society, to be in an all-white room with all white people drinking white wine and see themselves as some objet d'art, they're some object of exoticism, and they take that as themselves. They love that. So, and when in loving that, themselves being the exception, they see the bad parts and the disadvantages of what's happening in Black society, because there are many, and they use that to say, yeah, you're whatless, you're dusty, you're this, you're that, whatever they want to say, and they think that they have escaped blackness, they've escaped Blackistan, they've escaped until they get their wake-up call. You know what I'm saying? They were too busy trying to escape. But this is not a new thing. They was trying to escape even in the Caribbean, in the Americas. They were trying to escape. So we always thought that the position they gave to us was that, we was with you side by side. We was with you in the fields. We was with you. But the fact is, there was a considerable portion of them who were just hoping to get chose by Zaddy. And they thought that if they get chose by Zaddy, that their life would be different, and they would do anything to get chose. And didn't matter what kind of debasement happened in the bedroom or however he thought about people, they just wanted to escape. They just wanted to be there. And the numbers have grown, and they don't have to hide anymore. Their ideology is out there in the open. They think, yeah, we can say that we hate black men now, but they got this from despising us when we were, kidnapped or in the fields or whatever. So they looked down on us from that time. But they kept it quiet. And when everybody got out of slavery, they kept it quiet. But now, you hear them say, oh, slavery's in the past, slavery's past. But they know, there's still disparities between Europeans and the other races. But we got to stop allowing swirlers to say that they're interracial daters, because they're not. They're a different, separate type of phenomenon. That's what I got to say.
Perfect, man.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Can I read you some lyrics from the Andrews Sisters?
Mm-hmm.
Rum and Coca-Cola. If you ever go down to Trinidad, they make you feel so very glad. Calypso singing, make up rhyme, guarantee you a real good time. Drinking rum and Coca-Cola, both mother and daughter, working for the Yankee dollar. Since the Yankee come to Trinidad, they got the young girls all going mad. Young girls say we treat them nice, make Trinidad like paradise. Brother, that is an Andrews Sisters song from the 1940s.
Wow.
Did you hear the lyrics?
Yeah.
Did you hear the lyrics of that? It's a very popular old-time tune, Drinking Rum and Coca-Cola. Play that song. It is exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
It is exactly both mother and daughter working for the Yankee dollar.
But the one thing I do want to say before we move on,
yeah,
is that we haven't gotten to what he has to say about men.
Oh, I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
Their proclivity to prove, or substantiate their own validity, their own humanity, through conjunction and connection with a white woman. You know what I'm saying? So, and look, today what I'm doing is, I'm trying to be professorial and objective and impartial in a way. Okay, so but tomorrow I'll bring the smoke on men who swirl. And look, there are a whole bunch of reasons why, men, put forth the idea that, black women are cantankerous, they're unruly, they're aggressive, the whole nine. They are the product of concubine culture, which, like, at least Frantz Fanon is able to say these things in a way in which the contemporary writer cannot. I mean, you just can't today, or people are afraid to today. You know.
Let me chime in on how that song is important to me. First of all, I was married to a Trinidadian woman whose brother Gigi, ever since the young man was 19, said he would never marry a black woman. Did not marry a black woman. Okay? Father black, mother black, lived in the same house, although the mother is very light. And they grew up in the suburbs, right? So I could see him being uncomfortable with what he considered to be black culture of the 90s because it was, antithesis to their immigrant upbringing, right? It was everything that one would say, stay away from those black Americans because they ain't no good. On the other end, I used to have a homeboy in the hood who used to swear up and down that he needed to get him a white girl. And he had women he had women in school chasing him. This brother was a popular football player, but for him, he needed a white woman. He kept saying that, I got to get me a white woman. I got to get me a white woman. And he was from the mud. So I saw it from both ends in terms of this toxic, this toxic obsession with having to be with the other race. But there's another aspect within what you were reading that really struck me in terms of there are women who will never date interracially, but their hearts are just the same way that Frantz Fanon, describes those mulatto women in the book. They feel like they have to settle for black men. And it kind of reminds me of when Danny Glover in The Color Purple had to settle for Whoopi Goldberg instead of Suge Avery, right? So there was a contempt for the woman that he was with because he'd always desired this other woman. And a lot of that plays out in our community. And the caveat that those sisters can say, and I'm sure men can say is, oh, but I've never dated a white man or I never dated a white woman. But you could see everything in their life and everything that influences them happens to be that of white men and white women. I talked about this earlier today with the myth of the white womanhood, where, a lot of times sisters will see that lifestyle as a much better lifestyle, and they feel like they deserve better than the quote unquote savage black man.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
But what I would say is that when a black man chooses, my brother's been married since he was 17, now 40 something to the same white lady, nice girl. What I would say is, and I didn't approve, and we actually argued over it, but that was in the past. But what I would say is that when a black man, like one of those footballers from the NFM or the basketball stars, and they're seeking validation from white society as a trophy wife, they never have the contempt that you are experiencing from these black women today. They're not asking for the men to be killed. They're not asking for the men that they should all be just burned, and all these kind of horrible things about black babes. That doesn't exist anywhere else in any race or any gender. That is an exclusive to the black woman, and that has to be said. That's not to say interracial dating is now, but no, you don't get Asians, anybody else talking like that. Even black men, don't tell them, I'm not calling for the deaths of black women, but black women today, and they've got thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people are just full of contempt and hatred. That is the difference. You don't have to hate if you want to sleep with someone else.
That is, you make great points. I mean, it's this is a cycle. I said and I said it in the chat, that there's a difference between a toxic obsession and actually pair bonding with someone of another race. A completely total difference.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, my sister-in-law is Swedish. My nephews are Swedish. My sister-in-law has my nephews reading Fanon and everybody. she's so the, yeah, you know, it is. I see the difference, and my brother never saw a white woman. This woman, when my brother could not get you know, couldn't get a woman because his circumstances wasn't so well, and he used to hang out in the bar with his homies. This woman came, was up in Harlem, and she, you know, she just saw something in him. She wanted to be with him, and she kept chiming in to find him. She sought my brother out when she went back to Sweden, came back to Harlem and lived with him for 3 years. Yeah, this was not a toxic obsession. This was two people who met each other and were symbiotic in their ideologies. They're communists, you know, but they're symbiotic in their ideology and in terms of that particular lifestyle. But in terms of, you know, the obsession with race, my brother would have never seen himself married to a white woman ever, because we didn't grow up like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Kareem, look, we don't get too many comments from women, but I'm gonna let this one slide through. And it's a critique of white women. She says, not true, these Karens who call the police on black men for no reason don't want them to die. You know, and that's the question, you know. But here's the deal, though. Like, Kareem, you gotta hold on. I'm gonna answer this. I'm answering this. Then you can answer, okay? Here's my thing. There's a lot of black Karens out here too. Bro, I hate to say that, man.
You know how many women are
like it's a lot of white Karens out here, man. Like I gotta drop a bomb on that one, man. It's a lot of white ass Karens.
But I think she looks at their father. I don't think he didn't say that white women don't want. He never said that white women didn't want black men to die. He never said that. I think she misunderstood his point.
Well, you know, here's the deal. I think ultimately what, you know, like, let me go back to, and I'm going to use StreamYard as opposed to OBS to do this. I'm going to share the screen, go to the window, and where is the window with the damn? It's just ridiculous. Let me see here.
They used to come to our lynchings. We have pictures of them watching us get lynched. We all know that in this space. What was shocking is to hear sisters say that kill all male children. That's shocking.
A black woman born of a black dad.
Scared.
Possibly a black son. We're living in a time now where our enemies can move in amongst us undetected. It's much more serious than it was before. Like, yeah. Don't anybody try. I've got 2 black African children, so nobody shouldn't get an idea that I'm on some black woman tip. That's ridiculous. Okay, I've only ever been with black women. That's a fact. But what's around today is nah.
Yeah, we're talking about those who've made themselves known. I mean, again, in terms of that, you know, those toxic behaviors. I mean, when you got a sister on your side, I believe you got something amazing.
I do too. You know, especially if she's on your side. Especially if she's on your side.
We all do. All of us do. I think we're misunderstood in this space, and people don't understand that we love, you know, down our sisters. We think it's the best in the entire world.
There's not enough of them around anymore.
I know. We know that, but we know.
There's no point saying that because we talk about the ratio now. And I don't want to be thinking about.
We're like the Hunger Games. We're all trying to find the.
Yeah, bro, come on now.
Let me read this. Let me read this one more time. I know I had to scroll through it to find it, but here's what he says. I mean, ultimately in this paragraph, that's not the one. Let me see. It's this one here. There's 2 things which man can do. Okay, man is motion toward the world and toward his like. A movement of aggression which leads to enslavement or to conquest. A movement of love. A gift of self. The ultimate stage of what by common accord is called ethical orientation. So every consciousness seems to have the capacity to demonstrate these 2 components. One of aggression, the other of love. Right? But he goes into defining what love is. Okay? The person I love will strengthen me by endorsing my assumption of manhood. And I would assume that it would be reciprocal, right, with the woman. The person she would love will strengthen her by the endorsement of her womanhood, okay? While the need to earn the admiration of love of others will erect a value-making superstructure on my whole vision of the world, right? In reaching an understanding of phenomena of this kind, the analysts and phenomenologists are given a difficult task. And basically, Sartre is an existentialist, okay? He's an existentialist philosopher, right? And he basically says, look, love is a frustration, right? I guess, okay? But then he references him here in Being and Nothingness, right? Amounting only to an analysis of dishonesty and inauthenticity. The fact remains that if love is to be true, you wish for others what one postulates for oneself. Okay? That's not taking place in the swirler's idea if the only reason that they want to be with this person is so they can move into whiteness.
Basically.
That's using this person as a means to an end and not loving them for who it is that they are, despite the fact that they can introduce them into something that's based on neurosis to begin with, right? And it goes both ways. It goes the same way for men as to women.
Iconic. It is.
Okay? So I mean, at least for Fanon, okay? I'm not here to make, you can believe what you want. All I'm trying to do is introduce this thinker to give you a broader view, right? But in the end, if you're going to have authentic love, it has to be free from neurosis. You can't love someone who's white if you're a woman, and because he's a zaddy, you believe that his blue eyes make him superior. That's not love. That's neurosis.
But Gigi, it's not.
And the same with white women, man. It's like you can't love her merely for the fact that she's white. That's not love. That's neurosis. It's self-abnegating neurosis.
I've seen brothers reject white women on Instagram when they made these ridiculous posts like, I don't want me no white man. I just want. You would see all of the brothers commenting like, "Yo, what kind of sickness is that?" They would oftentimes reject that because that is a psychotic person.
Absolutely. I want to say
weird.
It's about T-Fitness though. Listen,
yeah,
we all know what we think about those white women who only date black brothers.
Right.
Like, yeah,
objectification, man.
And they're like, also poison pills.
We're not really on that because you know that they're looking at something else. They're not looking at you as a person.
And my assumption is they may have been psychologically damaged within their own home.
Absolutely.
And I don't want, who wants that? Who wants a person that could go off at any time, who may have had so many issues in terms of rejection? So you're looking at, you objectify based on race is very weird. And I can say that I had a proclivity for certain features on women, which is not the same thing as objectifying on race. To objectify on race is psychotic. To do it because you have a proclivity, like I look at, women, I'm like, I love that. I want to get to know that sister better.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Can I say something, Gigi? Please.
Sure.
Look at this scenario. Imagine this scenario, right? Boy meets girl, or rather, black girl meets white boy. They're having coffee. They're just meeting each other. They met on Tinder or something like that. So they have this conversation. Eventually, the conversation gets around to, oh, so what happened with your last boyfriend? And she says, oh, Brad, he wasn't this, he wasn't that. She says, okay. What about the one before that? And she says, I don't know what the name, but another white person's name.
Chad.
And then he's going to ask, at some point, he's going to ask the question, so have you dated any black guys? And she says, no. At that point, he's thinking, okay, this girl's got problems because she's black and she's never dated. He knows she's mad at that point. He knows she's insane. What's going to happen is that she sees in his eyes that he's thinking, there's a problem here. So in order for her to kind of like throw him off, she's gonna say, "Oh, black men are this, black men are that." No, I've never dated black men because they're misogynist, narcissistic, and go through all of them, all of that rubbish. But you know, when he meets a girl and she only dates white, he thinks the same thing we do if you see a girl when she only dates black brothers. You're like, nah, I'm not on that.
Or he may just be trying to get a high body count and get what he can get, or he may be dumb. I mean, there's very many reasons why you know, people can be fooled by something, but at the end of the day, you're right. Any ethical man hearing something so egregious would really take pause. I've heard Asian men say they don't want to date Asian women because they remind them of their mother. And I think sometimes women give those men a little bit of leeway because of that. So somebody can kind of, you know, I think that evokes of like an anti-Oedipus complex thing. So I think they get a pass for that. And that's quite different, right? I do think it's quite different than being obsessed with someone because of their race. I mean, it is different. It's a lot of nuance to this conversation that's really rough. I mean, how about this? How about if you're a brother who only wants sisters, but you can't get in the door, and you're gonna just get with the closest person that you hit it off with in terms of dating. That has happened a lot too, and people often mistake that for choosing one race over the other. When you're just choosing companionship where there has not been for you. And I see it with sisters too, particularly ones, that fall into like a bell curve. Like you might see a lot of really, really tall sisters who may not have a lot of, have a lot of options, but they end up dating interracially. Not because they're seeking that, but because they just don't want to be lonely, and I'm sensitive to that.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, I think we all do.
Interracial, I keep saying interracial and swirling is a different thing.
Yes,
we can't be. They're trying to push it as that's what it is, but if you just look at it, it's clearly not. There's something wrong with their minds. Something has happened to them. For them to have that, and it's more of a reaction against black men, because I heard Grown Man Business say on this channel the other day that how come the swirlers always talking about what black men don't do and not the goodness of white men? They should be singing the praises of white brothers and saying, yeah, they're so good, they do this, but all they do is talk about Blackistan and escaping it and just downing black men. Like, find something else to talk about, and if you're out of Blackistan, go and be happy.
I had a sister tell me she only dates black women and white men.
Oh boy.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Well, she was talking to another dude who was trying to hit on her, but she wasn't lying though.
No, because even the black woman thing is another madness. But I think that ideology has come out of this sisterhood thing. And Gigi would take, when Gigi broke down about the Combahee River Collective.
Yes.
I'm really grateful to him for that. But what that organization, is they also gave black women a sexual partner instead of black men, which was the lesbian thing. And they come in as sisters and we're sisters. And then they use that to get intimate. Next minute, they're all over there. And they've been this seduction, because one thing about homosexuals is they like to seduce straight people. They don't stay with their own homosexuals. Like black homosexual men want black straight men, and black homosexual women want, black straight women.
Well, man, Friday, to be fair, I heard a different statistic. I heard that it's much harder for black gay women to find monogamous relationships. So that's why, and they more tend toward monogamous relationships.
But that's why they're gay.
That's why they're always looking for someone. But again, same thing, trying to just not be lonely in the world that's there. So I'm gonna trust what the woman said when I heard her say that, and it makes
Well,
sense. It does make
is
sense.
there any amount of loneliness that could make you T Fitness become homosexual?
Oh, how? I'm sorry.
Exactly. Exactly. I rest my case. That can't be the reason because
Oh.
that's not how it works.
No, the answer is
But I
no.
can't. Yeah, the answer is no. So then,
Well, I think what the Combahee River Collective did was it participated in the normalization of homosexuality. Like the acceptance and the
in black activist spaces, yeah, it did.
and so James Baldwin was black and gay, and I'll never throw dirt on James
No, he
Baldwin.
never disparaged
Bayard
it.
Rustin.
And Bayard Rustin,
Yeah,
I would never throw salt on his name. He did a lot for black folks.
it's true.
Both of them did in their own unique way. Some people say that Baldwin was working for the CIA or something like that. Regardless, okay, some of the stuff he wrote was inspirational, okay, but these people were black first.
Yes.
They weren't gay first.
Thank you.
That all the time.
They weren't black and gay,
Thank
inextricably bound, in trying to demonstrate how oppressed they were by the opposite, by the same sex. Like James Baldwin never went. I mean, in fact, I have a clip where Baldwin was just speaking derisively about like Alice Walker's depiction of men in The Color Purple.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that Bayard Rustin would have the same sentiments. It's like, these guys weren't, they weren't like misandrous like that.
No. I agree. I totally agree. I don't have to me, homosexuals, they're casualties of white supremacy. To me, I see them as people who've been socialized in a way or touched as a child. They're victims of it. So they're not going to agree with that, but that's my thing. So I don't have any hate for them, except I don't like the fact that they trying to sexualize children. But I'm probably getting off topic. We're talking about homosexuals.
Yeah. Let's bring it.
But yeah, we don't want to sexualize.
I want to hear what Eon and Kareem got to say.
Mm-hmm.
Which one of y'all want to step up?
Oh, I'll go first. I just came up to respond to my comment about when I said the Karens, they do want to hurt black men. Someone says, I forgot who said it, about only black women hate black men, and I'm like, no, there's still racism. The way the person was talking was like, oh, we live in a utopia now, and everybody love everybody, everybody's colorblind, and it's only black women who hates themselves. No, like there's racism is still here, and there's a lot of those women that fetishize black men too, and like the guy said, I just heard about this philosopher. I mean, I went to college, but I think I took like one basic class in philosophy. I never heard of this philosopher, but like you said, Gigi, he said that if you love something, you want the best of them, right? So if these people are fetishizing a white person, they're obviously they're broken and there's something wrong with them. And the swirler thing, like most people who have sense look at swirling people like something is wrong with them, because if you're hating yourself, I mean, we're black people. Like if you want to date, if you fall in love and you date and you meet a nice man, Chinese, Indian, whatever, and y'all fall in love, okay. But to say you hate black men and all of this, come on, something is wrong with these people. They're on the social media spreading this hate, and a lot of people are joining with it because they're broken. And they come on social media and they see somebody and they're listening to all these like swirling people, like the girl that's on that channel. I used to listen to her. Then she started to talk this mess. I unsubscribed from her channel. So I feel like people need to we got to hold ourselves accountable. When we hear these people spreading these like negative and crazy thing about killing abortion, killing all black baby, like when people start saying those things, we know something is wrong with them in their head, because nobody with common sense should say anything about killing a whole race of people. That's genocide.
But
Who believes in genocide?
Well,
Except somebody that's crazy.
Well, that's what look, I think that Frantz Fanon is acutely aware of white women's racism. I don't think he would deny that at all. Like, the Karen effect, like how they echo the genocidal and the so-called master status of the men that they are connected to racially, not necessarily genetically, but racially. And so, but the hurting part that comes to black men is when you got black women who are so pathologically turned out by whiteness that they begin to replicate the sentimentality of white women. That's what black men are like. But contemporarily, you got black women who are acting like they're woke doing that shit. And that's what really has me fucked up. Right? Like, okay, you're woke, but what you're doing is replicating anti-black misandry from the races that you claim you're fighting and resisting against. That's the issue that we have. And like, that's why the work at Johnson, Dr. Johnson, Curry, Neil, like talking about these issues is important. And other people who do it, I mean, those are just the people I'm most closely connected to that have these conversations.
You too.
Well, I don't want to make reference to myself in the third person, but
good work, man.
But the thing is, and the same will go. I would assume for black men doing the same thing, fetishizing white women and trying to remove themselves from blackness. But the black man has an even deeper burden than these women, though. Okay, because he sees his position and he knows that he's been debased in ways that not even his own women have. Right? White men get the pick of any women they want. Like these colonial settlers, they get to pick the women they want.
Yep.
And then they get to, like Biggie Smalls, like I said, nothing left to do but send her home to you. I'm through. Like literally, like that's literally cuckold shit. Okay? And black men have had to deal with that. So one of the ways men try to escape it, like you even see this in like Eldridge Cleaver's book, Sold on Ice. Like, or even like Malcolm X's book, where he talks about like being with white women and running through them and, playing out or enacting rape, like to pay back psychically, like what was done to their mothers or their aunties or their grandmothers, their foremothers. It's like, hold on. These white guys were able to do this to our women. We gonna get them back. You know what I'm saying? So, but without the power, superstructurally, you understand what I'm saying? Because a woman will only allow herself to be done that way because she allows herself to be done that way. It's not like this is like black men could go in and like the movie Colors, like you're gonna run down there and get one of them. We gonna walk down there and get them all. Like black men don't have that power in this culture anyway. Okay, not to say that black men have never had that power before in different kind of cultures and in different epochs, but we a lot of times we're patterning our familial and our relationship structures of these people, man. And as he says, a lot of what they do is pathological. You understand what I'm saying? So,
can I jump in real quick? Say something real quick.
Yeah.
And this is in regards to really the plight that black men deal with when it comes to this. My lady, she's black, and when she's around other white women, the things that they say to her, when we were first dating, and I mean we were dating for like 7 months and everything like that. I asked her to meet me at a certain location, and she was at another location. She had to leave her working location where she was at to come to see me. Now, her coworker said to her, "Well, where you going?" She goes, "Well, I'm going to meet such and such." And her coworker, who was white, told her, "Well, don't let him force you to do anything that you don't want to do." And my girl came back and told me this, and I'm like, who the hell is she? And I hope you're not hanging around her too much. because that is essentially one of the issues that we tend to deal with, because presently right now we're demonized in the society. So henceforth now then our own women get feedback from other women, their so-called sisters, that tell them, hey, look, you know, you got to watch out for that black man. And again, it's not just in the academic sense, it's in conversations and relationships. And there were other instances that occur where my girl has told me this as well, where her friends blatantly said to her, like, wow, I'm surprised you're dating a dark-skinned black man. Oh, wow, how did that happen? And I asked her, who's saying this to you? Who are these friends that you're around that are spewing these things into your mind? It's a very dangerous situation, because as a black man, I don't have none of my friends saying that to me. Not one of my friends come off and go, yo, watch out for her. She's this, she's that. But for some strange reason, this is what we get. And I think it's an interesting dynamic that we have to deal with on both ends that could be very stressful. You know, I'll mute my line. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. You know the thing that you know that interests me here is nobody has yet, other than like somebody like Shahrazad Ali, like no man in the area of psychology or psychiatry has done a similar kind of study about the black male and the female mind in America that I can like really point to, other than like somebody like, you know, some people touch on it, but they never get to it like a Frantz Fanon does. And maybe that's because, you know, Fanon has done the work already and they feel like there's nothing new that they could add to it. But, or maybe it's because it's the times that we live in, where work like that would be considered to be deeply problematic because it would be regarded as misogynist or misandrous. I don't know. But I think that, you know, black folks in America are subjected to the same kinds of criticism that Fanon is talking about when he's talking about Algerian colonialism and Martinican colonialism. I think, you know, the same effects are still here. And until we deal with those, you know, like until we deal with those facts, it's still we're gonna have issues. You know, like, I mean, a black man is not a white man. We don't have the same historical circumstances. We don't have the same historical context. We don't emerge from the same kind of culture. I mean, you know, I mean, the same circumstances don't apply to us.
No.
Okay, and so right now, I mean, I wish I would have, you know, read chapter 1, because chapter 1 is about language and about the black mind and how the black mind, for the most part, is a colonized mind. You know, your ideas, the way you color the world, the way you make sense of reality, is brought about by language. But what happens when your language is only a language that you're not the creator of? Your ancestors didn't create that. There's no symbology, no historical connection to the language that you have. I mean, only insofar as, you know, you're a descendant of slaves, but like we don't have a native language. We're a deracinated people. Like it's like Malcolm X said, although not, but it's like Farrakhan said. When we were first brought here, we were robbed of our names, robbed of our language. We lost our religion, our culture, our God, and many of us, by the way we act,
we even lost our minds.
You know,
like, I mean, it's just, and I think that like Fanon is trying to demonstrate, you know, more from a clinical approach, how we actually did lose our minds. We lost it. We're neurotic. We got some psychopathology going on, and it plays out in interracial relationships. And it also plays out in the relationships we have with each other. And until we can get that straight, and you know how he says we can get it straight.
Yes.
You really don't want to go into that. I'm not going to even cover that. But I mean, he's an advocate for violence.
Yes.
He's a political revolutionary, and he believes that, you know, this can only be solved through violence, and that you only get respect through violence. And unfortunately, I mean, he's respected, but I think that, he's respected in the academy. It's almost as if he's been assimilated to cut the edge off, the reality of what he's saying. So now white women with dreadlocks who are feminists can teach him. But who is she teaching them to? You know what I'm saying? Like what kind of weight will she have? Like, what kind of revolutionary sentiment will she drum up by teaching Fanon? It's you see this shit happen all. It's like even like anything black folks come up with this revolutionary, a white person can assimilate it and neutralize it. I'm just saying, but Black in Effect, I haven't heard you say anything, so I'm gonna let you say something. I'm in 10 minutes. I'm cutting this. I'm off.
Thank you for having me up.
Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you for having me up, Gigi. And I want to back up what you were saying. I kind of covered this. So I made a video addressing one of these divestors and swirlers. I won't say her name on your channel. And Gigi, when I tell you her channel, the comments, you would have thought it was a white racist man's video channel. This and I'll say it, sister, but because that's how I speak. But the sisters sound completely KKK neo-Nazi, and it is the myth of white womanhood, right? The goal is to be not just a white woman, the top 20% white woman, right? That white, the kept white woman. Mm-hmm. The way they even insult black men is that and they'll say it, you've been colonized, you're weak, you haven't built anything, where's your businesses? And it's this hyper-capitalist, white supremacist, and I'm going to keep on throwing words in there, neoliberal version of like white manhoodness that's all the way on the top. And until you achieve that, not only will I not want to be with you, but forget that, I won't even respect you as a group, as an individual or as a group. And I think that's as a black man, I'm not ADOS, I'm Haitian descent, but I was born and raised in America. As a black man being born and raised here, I think that's the most disheartening part, is that it's almost like everything pre-1980 didn't happen, right? And that's when you see black men or black women that kind of speak in this way, they act like slavery never happened, they act like Jim Crow never happened. You start, not even 1980, you start the clock at 1985, and that's what matters. And
like
that's frightening.
Somebody like Fanon would say that's absolute neurotic.
Crazy.
And it's an indicator that there's something that's going like awry in the early formation of these people's egos and identities. But the way Fanon wants to handle this is to improve the quality of family and community life. Not to have people go see therapists and sit down on crazy chairs and get medicine. He's basically saying that we need healthier families in order to mitigate this neurosis.
Sorry to interrupt.
But unfortunately, we've come to a point where black men have been removed from the family. And that's unfortunate. But this is in the making. This has been in the making for quite a bit of time.
Gigi, I wanted to make one more point and then I'll drop off real quick. The last point is to back you up again about the colonization of the mind. Even if you take it outside of the black community and you look, and I love using East Asians as the juxtaposition because their men, from what we know, make more per capita than anybody else. But look at American-born Asian women and look at who they're marrying. White men. So that shows you, and more than half of them, by the way, that's the frightening part, right? So it shows you this is not even about you being in the air quotes dominant position, right? Or in financially stable position. This shows that these men have colonized the minds of women, generally speaking. And if those women live in the West, the goal is to be with white men. And I'll end it right there. Once again, thank you for having me up, brother.
Most Indian women.
Good points, man. Good points. Yeah, thank you, man.
Back off of him really quick.
Give you a bomb for that. And the reason I give him a bomb for that is because he's true. Colonization has a global impact and effect on more than just black women, right? And it's important to touch upon that fact. Like we're witnessing a global phenomenon, and the way to deal with it is either through violence or a better structure of family life. And I'm pretty sure that white men were able to, when they colonized China, they colonized India. I mean, but these people, they only recently rose to prominence within the last 500 years, man. Like these people have not been like controlling the planet forever. But people make that assumption, like they had world hegemony for like thousands and thousands of years. Think about the Greeks. Like Greece did conquer Egypt. I mean, but they weren't like, people knew like Egypt has more cultural impact and influence than Greece. And the same for Babylon. I mean, like it wasn't like Babylon wasn't an ancient city, like Persia was ancient, man. Yeah. And it wasn't as if some of these people like from Greece didn't travel there. Like, and you got to think, where did Alexander set up his capital? He didn't set it up in Greece. Egypt. He set it up in Egypt. Now, like we can debate about like the Africanness of Egypt. I'm not about to get into all of that. But suffice it to say, these people are new kids on the block, man. Big time. During the Dark Ages, and they put themselves in the Dark Ages with Christianity, man. And I'm not hating on Christians at all, but it's just a fact, man. Cyril, the bishop, he's the one that destroyed the Library of Alexandria, man. He's the one that did that, man. He was in pursuit of earthly temporal power, and he destroyed the Library of Alexandria and burned Hypatia was the one who was the curator of the Library of Alexandria, a woman. Yeah. I mean, he basically defined her as a witch and destroyed that shit. You understand what I'm saying? So, like, these people took the world backwards, man, a little bit. And, all of a sudden they have this renewal. And this is what people don't also know. Like, all the Greek philosophy was regarded as pagan by the Germanic tribes. They were like, okay, we don't want to have shit to do with that. That's pagan. It wasn't until St. Augustine started writing that, like people began to consider philosophy as something that ought to be done again. Then you get St. Thomas Aquinas, who basically introduces Aristotle back into Europe. But the people who curated and who, preserved Greek philosophy, it was the Arabs. They were the ones that did that shit. Or the people of Islamic faith, and many of which were black. They're the ones that preserved what is now considered to be the cornerstone of Western thought. It would have been lost to them had it not been preserved by people who they considered now to be terrorists and savages. And, you point that out in classes and shit, kids are like, some white kids just don't care. I mean, but the ones who are smart, who actually, who have, a philosophical soul, they'll be like, damn, ponder that shit, but at the end of the day, man, these people, man, they've done a hell of a thing on the planet, man, in a short period of time. And they did so. Without help. They did so by means of slavery and the exploitation of other people's lands like nobody's ever done before.
Yeah, they took advantage of our discontent with one another. They took advantage of openings that we left, and they certainly did what they saw that they had the opportunity to do. I like when you brought up the fact that let's walk down and get them all. One of the most out of context quotes of Malcolm X is the most disrespected and the most unprotected woman on the planet is the black woman. The context in which he was saying that? Malcolm X was saying that in the context that a lot of the sisters were having interracial babies by landlords, bosses, and in his mind, it was time for the black man to get back at these men for taking advantage of these vulnerable women. That quote has been taken and flipped on its head to demonize black men. That quote was never designed to demonize black men. He was saying that to say that white men were running through sisters who were in vulnerable positions. Everything that we are experiencing now, I feel like I'm in Bizarro land. What y'all call pro-black on the internet is crazy as hell to me. I'm like, none of this is pro-black. This is crazy, crazy sickness. This is all anti-black. It's like we're in Newspeak. We are living in 1984.
Facts.
Yeah, I feel like, eventually I'm going to put up a GIF, a Twilight Zone GIF. This is where I feel like I reside now, man, in the Twilight Zone. Like people, I don't know, man. Everything, like the world is turned upside down, man. Like, I'm gonna do a show tomorrow. I think I'm gonna talk about Lizzo. I know it's old, but it's not really old because she recently got invited to do a TED Talk on twerking. Ooh. And it's like, look, I don't have a problem with her being proud of herself. She should be proud of herself. She's talented musically, okay? And I would never take away from that. But I think her exhibitionism, sexually is neurotic. That's just my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's just my opinion, okay? I don't have a problem with like women doing certain times and festivals, letting it all hang out, like doing carnival or some shit like that. But like the everyday need to just engage in debauchery, like, to be sexually exhibitionist, to me it's like, what for, dude? Like if you ain't in that industry especially. And you know what, man, there's a reason why these strip clubs, man, ain't got 300-pound strippers, bro. I'm just keeping it 100. Like, I'm not trying to be ignorant. Like, I don't know no BBW strip clubs where it's like 300-pound women coming out just shaking it and motherfuckers throwing hella cash making it rain there, bro. I'm not even trying to be ignorant. But it's like, come on, man. What is this? This has its basis in recognition at all costs. And like just being like licentious. Like if we don't begin to develop standards, there is no standard at all for anything. It's all subjective. And so, the more I'm gonna do a show, man, about twerking and shit, and I can't say, what the product of it'll be because I haven't done it yet. I made the graphic for it, and I got the article that I want to read. But at some point, like I recognize the value and dignity of everyone innately. But I don't have to recognize the sexual allure of everyone. That's not something I have to do. And also, I want to talk about hygiene or the goddess Hygeia. Like there's a link between being fit and being of a sound body and mind and hygiene. You understand what I'm saying? And like these to me are signs, they're outward signs of inward depravity or psychosis, man. Just like Fanon is talking about. Like, and look, I grew up when I first saw P-popping come to be a thing, man. Way before, I went to college and all that shit. Like my cousin, they're from New Orleans, man. And that's where that shit started. P-popping, twerking and all that shit.
Oh, okay.
It started in New Orleans, man. And they would do that shit. And especially during carnival time. And it has a connection to African culture. But in a context, like even in African culture, man, the women ain't just busting out twerking at any time. It's a festival dedicated to this shit.
Mating dance.
It's a time for it. And then after that, you retreat from it. It's a place for it. You get what I'm saying? Like I'm sure like women in Brazil and like in Trinidad and shit during carnival time are twerking like a motherfucker. But I guarantee you after that shit,
Back
they
again.
ain't just twerking every damn where all the time. Like maybe at a club or some shit.
It wasn't called twerking, Gigi. That was winding your waist. They used to wind
Yeah,
your
it's
waist.
whining. Is we don't call
Yeah.
it twerking in
But this
Caribbean.
twerking thing is a
Yeah,
derivative from the thing, and they're
that's
making
a
out as if it was some ancient African thing.
yeah.
It wasn't at all. It started in the Caribbean
No.
to calypso music in Trinidad and places
Calypso,
like that.
soca, dancehall music is whining. We
Don't
don't.
believe
I don't
that.
call it
They're just trying
twerking.
to remix the meaning to just not
But
criticize bad behavior.
erotic dancing from Africans didn't start in Trinidad though, or Brazil. Like I mean, you know,
You
like
don't
you
find
had
twerking in Africa, Gigi. You don't see it in twerk. The twerking,
not twerking. I'm just saying erotic dancing. Like you had erotic, like Ethiopian erotic
of
dancers,
course, you got belly dancing in Asia, but
right?
that's not
So
what we're talking about. This what's happening today is vulgar.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
is
mean
to me.
the specifically whining their butts like they're doing. That was
Whining
really
is a
Yeah,
collective
that's a
Like they
thing.
fucking in a
Caribbean thing
restaurant.
though.
Like
Before that's what we're
that's
saying.
yeah.
Yes.
I'm just all yeah. I did see the DJ Elmo. I did see the women twerking in a restaurant, and it just reminds me like black women are becoming more like unruly black men. It's like a bunch of dudes in a restaurant standing on the chairs, you know, smoking blunts inside the restaurant,
Throwing up
rolling dice or some shit like that, or being loud and obnoxious. Like it's the same sort of moral depravity.
But
And look,
Gigi,
I don't mind brothers, man, sometimes doing a certain space and time, doing something obnoxious, but like if you know, like if even if I'm in Hooters, motherfucker, I ain't gonna expect like girls who come in the restaurant to start twerking and shit. I don't even expect the Hooters girls to start twerking. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it's a place and a time for everything. Like if I'm sitting down, like I don't know what kind of restaurants y'all got, but like let me just use the national. If I'm in Ruth's Chris Steakhouse and it just so happened they got a black manager and they playing, you know, like some Southern trap, I don't expect for women to just start getting on the tables, man, and bar crawling and shit. Not at fucking Ruth Chris Steakhouse. Now maybe at the Magic City, yeah. But
They're
it's
doing
places
this
in,
for beyond to be, and I think they're doing this like to be seen. Just like remember one time everybody was busting out doing a dance, what you call a dance, a couple years ago. I think these people are doing this just for attention. They're really doing this for attention because no one with common sense, you don't behave like that. I mean, as ghetto as you're ghetto, you're not supposed to be twerking on nobody restaurant. Come on.
yeah, getting on the table on all fours, man, and showing your ass to the public, man.
have
Like
you ever seen?
if that's my daughter, man, I'm gonna be sadly disappointed. If that's my girlfriend, I'm gonna be like, man, you out here wilding. You know what I'm saying? If it's my wife, I'm getting a divorce.
Have
know
you
what
ever
I'm saying?
seen gangsters at TGI Fridays throwing up gang signs and crip walking?
I haven't seen it, but you know,
I've never heard of that. I've never heard of like the wildest dudes going into a nice restaurant just shooting CeeLo in the. I never seen that. Because brothers knew, like in New York, if you was on that, you went to the tunnel. That was a certain kind of nightclub. You knew what it was. You never went into spaces that were not for you, bringing that kind of culture there. You understand what I'm saying? So it's wild that you say that they remind you of these unruly brothers, but even back then, the unruly brothers wasn't doing that crazy stuff.
all I'm saying is we got to learn how to restrain ourselves. I ain't saying we got to act white. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying we got to be totally respectable. Like, you know, we can't let our collars down at all or let our ties down at all. All I'm saying is, you know, we got to figure out something other than dry humping, man. Like, we got to do something better than that, man. Like, you know, that's not revolutionary. It's not really for real artistic. And the funny thing is, you know, Luke Skywalker, when he was promoting that bullshit, they said that shit was obscene and tried to, you know, cut his money off. Like they didn't just try to cancel him. They tried to cancel all of this shit.
They tried
And
to
if it
put him in
wasn't for
jail.
him, winning that battle in court, we'll have a different recording industry and a whole different culture right now.
Yep.
Just the facts. Now, but you know, it's about doing things with taste, man. Like burlesque is okay at certain times and places.
You're right. We don't want
You know,
the
you
baby
like
shit.
even a burlesque dancer ain't gonna just be at the chicken and the wing spot breaking out just doing some vulgar shit. Like it's
We
a
don't
time
want-
and a place for everything.
We don't want
dog.
the baby seeing it. We don't want grandma and grandpa seeing it no more because they seen enough of it. We don't want, we want, like you said, everything has its time and place. None of us, I mean, I'm not gonna speak for anyone else, but I know I'm not into respectability politics at all, but no, man, you're absolutely right. You know, there time and place for everything,
So I'm gonna go around the horn right now, man, and let everybody speak. And then I'm about to be about this joint. I'm at 240 right now, but I'm gonna let y'all go around the hoop, and I'm gonna start with Chaos and work my way up. Chaos, Kareem, Eon, Mike, T Fitness, Man, Friday, and then I'm about to close out. So Chaos, you got anything to tell us?
No, it's an excellent stream, man. How you read Frank Fanon's book, Black and White Mask, Black Skin, White Mask, I think. And that's something that every black person, if they never owned that book, I just got my copy. Was 2 months ago. I haven't read much chapters yet, but I have it because I always contemplate getting that book because I read Amos Wilson's works. And he does mention on one of his last few publications with Sabah about black skin and white mask on self-hatred and self-defeating. That it tells the psyche of the Negro, how he works extra hard to become white. And he will self-annihilate himself if he cannot accomplish his white, accomplish becoming absolutely white. So,
Yeah.
Somebody say something?
Yeah, man. Look, I'll do more of this kind of stuff if you want me to. I kind of pulled back and got, more, I guess, man, just, talking about contemporary issues. But to me, what I want to do is just bring the research to bear. And like the canon of black folks, like black authors, even white authors sometimes, on like their interpretation of what we're doing now. And I think that they have some things to say. They can speak to us and temper our thought and, give us some new things to think about. So that's why I did the show. And I thought it was fitting because, I keep hearing this swirling conversation. And I just thought, like seeing what Fanon had to say about it would prove interesting to some people. So, I guess there's some people who are not going to like it, I'm sure. There's some people who probably will like it. But, it is what it is, man. But thank you, Chaos.
My thing that who will not really like it is the ones engaged in swirling and have no conceptual idea what they're really doing at the end of the day. Frank Frantz, he died, in 1960?
61.
Okay, so he's been off this earth now, like you said, 6 years. Yeah. And at a mid-age in his 30s where black man reached almost his peak of understanding, he would have a lot more works. Now, I'm not sure what causes death and all that stuff, but when you're talking
leukemia.
about...
He had leukemia.
Okay, so something... Okay. All right, well, that makes sense. But, many works. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, he had leukemia, and he died a year after he was diagnosed with leukemia. And he was 36 years old, man. I mean, this was a young brother, man. He died too soon. But the world gives us the gift of life, and the world ushers us back into, the essence, man. This is how it goes, man. We only here for one life, man, and you only got a short time to live it. And but what's so dope about psychology is at least that they were beginning to understand, the impact that early childhood has on the development of the habits of adult human beings, man, and how sometimes we need to go back because we regress. And unfortunately, we got poor upbringings, a lot of us, man. Like, it's absolutely horrendous. Some of the things our parents say, like, I've heard my grandmother say, he's so black, he purple and shit like that. Like,
yeah.
So, he's so black, he blurple and all this bullshit. Like, come on, man. Like I always looked at it like with with a side eye, because I just, my grandmother looked like a white woman almost. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
and I asked her, like, are you white? Like, why are you white? You know what I'm saying? And my mother was a fair skinned woman. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I see.
And she's a pretty lady, you know what I'm saying? My OG was, but damn, like, like I never had this fetish with light skinnedness. You know what I'm saying? Like I just never had it.
Bro, I had to say my great grandmother was a swirler, man. She was a Portuguese. She was a cook to a Portuguese overseer. So that'd be my mother's grandmother. My mother's grandfather was straight Portuguese. I worked on the slave, but swirling is in this thing. But anyway, swirling is in this thing, but I'm gonna go now and just say that, in the modern metropolis, that there's lots of races, reiterating what I said earlier, but swirlers are not interracial daters. They have a psychological issue, and the history books haven't really investigated this. So I'm glad for the stream that you did today, because this phenomenon needs more analysis. It needs to be in depth because this is affecting the community today. So we shouldn't be ignored, and I've got to salute you for that, GG. I'm going to sign off now, folks. Thanks again.
Man. Take care, bro. Take care.
But one thing I do want to add on, Sister Man mentioned about swirling, and you talk about where we get this mentality of black skin and negativity. It's not from the fathers, it's the mothers. And I tell most people this: when you hear other countries talking about otherwise, that's developed by men. You gotta look at it and say these same people are not well versed on fucking history. I don't take the word of no woman that doesn't deal with the actual history as a totalitarian. Period. We all know growing up, we have grandmas, mothers. If you come out more darker with nappy hair, they will let you know. They'll reinforce the negativity and the self-hatred with them. Period. I don't hear no father say, boy, you black as hell and all this stuff. Boy, you're snappy. You don't hear none of that in a father at all. Especially he's black.
Well, man, all I can say is, man, like you got to wait till tomorrow to see what he has to say about black men.
I can't wait for that.
Fetishization of white women, and like what it means psychologically. You know what I'm saying? Because it means something. It definitely has a meaning, bro. You know what I'm saying? And so I just, even though my mother was a fair-skinned woman, man, and I'll show you a picture of my mom's, man. She fair-skinned like a motherfucker, but, I never, and I'm taking it straight from my phone. I don't know if you can see that shit. Hold on. I just never, I didn't give a damn. You know what I'm saying? Like, it confuses me, man. Like to see people like so strung out on this shit. And I'll show you a picture of my grandmother. My grandmother looks like a damn white woman, bro. I swear to God, man. I just never got hung up on that shit. And I don't know why I never did, but I just never did, bro. I've had dark girls, I've had light girls in between, caramel complected, cocoa brown, whatever.
Yeah, the ice cream.
Long as you good to me, yeah, like Meth Man,
Yeah.
Wu-Tang. Like it, but I never had a white girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know, man. Maybe I was raised to my father was like, man, like on some Farrakhan shit, man. So maybe that's what it is. And I don't I don't hate white folks. It's just I think it's, like it's dangerous, man. Like I just, I never wanted to cross into those bounds. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just something I never, had a strong inclination to do, bro. It's just.
Well, before I sign out, let me say that my mother is half white. My grandfather is a white Jew. And you know that my mother married my father, who was the founding member of the 5% Nation in Harlem, who my father's minister was Malcolm X. he was also under Farrakhan. So my mother rejected her. My mother rejected her biracial side for such a long time, and she was very militant. And the stuff I sound, my name is T Fitness for you. You go on Instagram, scroll through my pictures, and see that everything I tell you is true. As I can see your mom too. Look at my mom.
That's mom's.
You look at my mom.
But look, wait a minute. Look at grandma's though. Look,
grandma probably look as white as my mother.
No, she don't look that white, but she
nice.
damn near. I thought she was white. I asked her when I was young. I was like, "Why you white?"
You know,
like,
Richard Wright. Richard Wright and
Black
Black Boy asked his grandmother the same thing. You know that? did you remember reading Black Boy?
Look, I
Yeah,
was like that.
That's
I thought she was white as a motherfucker. I was like, hey,
yeah, she looked like a movie star. Green Gorilla.
She is white.
She's like a movie star. One movie star.
No, she ain't, man. She you know, they was some attractive ladies, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, it just is what it was. You know what I'm saying? So I just never. I just, you know, like, who knows, man, how that shit fell down? Because a lot of them was fucking, like, you know, part of the mulatto shit that, like, Frantz Fanon was talking about, bro. That's why, you know, motherfuckers don't want to trace their history and their lineage a lot of times in the black community. Because, you know, like, sometimes Zaddy in that motherfucker, you know what I'm saying?
You be saying
sometimes,
we Indian.
Sometimes Zaddy up in that motherfucker, bro. And I do believe, man, Zaddy had some shit to do with this, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like, just be honest, man. Like, we have to start admitting this shit, bro. You know what I'm saying? For real, bro. Now, she wouldn't let, I can tell you, one day, though, I went to a grocery store, right? I was with my grandmother and shit. And, you know, I'm a little bit darker than my mother and shit, so I'm in the motherfucker. And I walk in, man, and the black security guard was like, little nigga, where you going? And I'm walking right next side by side with my grandmother. Oh, she gave that motherfucker the business, bro. She went off on that motherfucker, boy. She gave him the riot act. Like, that's my grandson, motherfucker. It went off. I was like, damn. But, you know, it's funny, man, growing up like that, man, like with a parent that don't look shit like, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I look just like my mother, but in relation to my grandmother, though, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, the color skin difference was like radical. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
It was like just radically different. And so, you know, like I can look at, like, say, for example, Ian is light skinned, right? And you can tell he light. You can tell he a light skinned nigga. He look like Morris Day color or some shit. You know? But my grandmother didn't look like Morris Day. She looked like a fucking white lady, man.
Mm-hmm.
But
it tells you, Green Gorilla, that the miscegenation is very strong. Depending how the mixture is, you can come out almost looking like a white person, not careful. Even now, some of us that produce children outside of the race, they're looking more and more whiter. And I think it might apply to 14 or 20% of the European diluting in us.
It's been like that.
Yeah, man. You know, it just is what it is, man. I'm gonna let Eon speak because he's not spoken since, and Kareem speak, and then I'm about to get up out of here, man. Eon, you got something to say, bro? You keep coming in and out.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but you know you're
man,
not.
this StreamYard is, man, every time, man, your StreamYard give me hell, bro.
Hey, man, I don't know why. You know what I'm saying? I can't explain why. Sorry. I'm sorry, my brother.
Oh, man.
Can you hear me?
But if you ain't got nothing to say, man, you on now. So speak now, forever hold your peace. Because I'm about to get up out here.
I don't even know if y'all can. Okay,
I can hear you now.
So yes. Let me say something. I don't even know if y'all can hear me, but okay, cool. Yeah, man. So yeah, everything you're saying is good about Frantz Fanon and the blackface and black woman, man. I mean, at the end of the day, we just gotta understand, man. You know, all these theoretical concepts of race. You know what I'm saying? At some point, we might just have to let go of, you know what I'm saying, this chick wrote this book called The End of Blackness, man. I'm starting to think, man, I might have to forget all concepts of blackness, man, because this thing don't work, man. It ain't working to be black, to see yourself as black, and you don't have a community or family as a vehicle.
Uh-oh, damn. I get what he's saying though. He's saying you don't like what good is blackness? You know, but blackness was created by whiteness. I mean, you know, you just had a bunch of different ethnic groups and tribes and stuff from Africa and elsewhere. You know, you didn't have like these people didn't refer to themselves as like one collective blackness. They just didn't, you know what I'm saying? So that's about the size of that, man. Go ahead and finish your thought, Ian.
Yeah, man.
And
So yeah,
man and
what I
look,
was
this is my
saying
response to Man
is that
Friday though. Look, this is my response though when it comes to Man Friday. As long as there's whiteness, you're gonna have to have something to be the antithesis of it, and to get rid of that. Unless that happens, I'm gonna be black as a motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Like it just is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So I get it. You know what I'm saying? But as long as these Yurugus around, man, terrorizing the planet, you know, it just is what it is. But you know, I don't want to run it dead in the ground, man. I'm about to
Yeah, you
sign
right.
off. I'm
You
almost
right,
at the
man.
3-hour mark. I said that shit when I was at the
don't see it.
Poor man. Peace.
No, Kareem, no, I'm gonna let you get the last word.
Okay, I'm gonna be brief since you're tired. Thank you for having me up. Thank you for introducing all these different philosophers. For me, like I said, I went to school, but I didn't study in depth, or at least people. So thank you for introducing them to me personally. This anti-blackness, like it really irks me. I feel like people, we need to, whatever issues we have, there's so much. We have so much therapy now. It's 2021. People get help. Try to work that out. And and all of this talk about aborting babies and all these things that, I hate that type of talk. Any of those content creators that keep saying that, I try to get their channel flag. I don't care, because I feel like that's hate speech. We shouldn't promote talking like that about black people. Hell no. So that's what I tell to anybody who's doing that. That's hate speech.
She's right.
Anyway, all right. Thank
Word
you.
up.
She's
Thank
All
right.
you.
right, bye.
So, a lot of people watch the Green Gorilla channel, and sometimes the shit I say is a little off-putting or whatever the case may be, but I say it, man, because I'm trying to get people to think, man, and I have ideas and thoughts, and I get upset and pissed off about shit. Just like black women get pissed off at black men, we got some shit we got to say too and get off our chest. But thank you, Kareem, for being understanding and coming through and being a supporter of the channel, man. You are a member of the Green Gorilla channel, so I appreciate your support, man. You feel me? So,
Feel you. All right. Good night.
good night. So, at the end of the day, man, thank y'all for joining. I'm about to do like Russell Simmons. Thank you for coming out. God bless you. Good night. I'll holler at y'all tomorrow. You dig? On the good foot. Holler at you.